We only have one chan mark. Attending. They do, but in our season.
Just a moment. Come to the March Scholars Academy Board meeting. It is 6:39. Thank you for your patience as we get ourselves organized. Call the meeting to order. Do we have a quorum? We do. Have you had a chance to record our guests? While you do that, I'll ask Atisha to read our mission statements.
Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy provides a differentiated, challenging, and equitable learning environment that supports the distinctive intellectual, social, and emotional needs of highly gifted children from diverse backgrounds and enables them to form meaningful relationships with their intellectual peers.
Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is the administrative meeting review. I'll just read through our etiquette rules. Meetings will be broadcast to the public via Zoom webinar platform. This medium is more secure as it requires attendees to register, limits interactivity, removes the ability to communicate without permission, and does not permit anonymous participation, comment, or annotation. Registration will require the submission of a first and last name and an email. We are just going to pause for a moment while Dominique gets a chance to record our attendees, and then we will approve prior minutes. Next item on the agenda is to approve the board minutes from February 27th, 2023. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mike, can we hear you say aye?
Aye.
And the minutes from the February board meeting have been approved. We did have a special board meeting on March 14th. So all those in favor. Do I need to entertain a motion to approve them? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the March 14th. minutes.
So.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ray. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The special minutes, meeting minutes from March 14th have been approved. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda that's been shared. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We will proceed with the agenda as it is. So, Mike,
I assume that was no amendment, no changes to the agenda, in which case it's aye for me.
thank you. That brings us to our first opportunity for community comments, subject to the following guidelines. The public is welcome to speak, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Topics should not cover private, confidential, or personal information. The board will not respond or enter into dialogue on topics discussed. At this time, you may indicate your desire to participate in community comments by raising your hand. You can do that through the Zoom features. Take a look at the. Or if you have any trouble with it, use the chat. This time, I don't see any interest in community comments.
Oh, that's what the panel, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, recording attendees.
That's not all of them. You still have to scroll. State the one you just took.
The next item on our agenda is the director's report, so I will hand it over to Mrs. Piper.
Have a few topics for discussion this evening. The first being to discuss our admissions process for the 23-24 school year. We did have our lottery this past Thursday night to offer seats for next school year, and I've started our enrollment process already. I've started the flood of documents for people who are going to be enrolling for next year, and I even got to meet one of our kindergartners accidentally on Friday night when I was here for the dance, because they just were here to come see their new school, just the outside. Got to meet a little young 4-year-old little man. It's exciting to start the process over. But I put some data together for everyone to look at. Just some high level data that we've been collecting over the years, just to kind of show how admissions has changed over time. These are the total number of students who've taken our group test, starting in the 2018-19 school year, and going to the 2023-2024 school year. How many students who had already been qualified who reapplied in the second column, and then the total number of applicants we received. So that last column is counting both qualified and not qualified, as well as complete and incomplete, but just showing you how our marketing efforts are reaching out to the community. Understanding that we've gone, to 823 families have at least filled out an online application, which means they had to have gone to our website, opened up our application, and filled out a Google form. So that just shows that, more people are interested in Scholars Academy than we have, ever had in history. And those group test numbers have gone up significantly over the last 3 years. So I just thought it'd be good to share kind of these trends of where we're going with reaching students. Any questions about that? Any other questions about the admission? Okay. The next page shows the historical wait list. So this is where we are after the lottery, after we offer seats and fill seats. So when you see that kindergarten number, that's after we've already filled the 36 seats. There are still an additional 21 students remaining on our wait list for kindergarten. The kindergarten number is a little bit lower than it has been typically, but some of the other grades are higher, and it varies year to year as to how many qualified applicants we may have at a specific grade. But the overall wait list number, has stayed pretty steady for the last 3 years. Any questions about wait list? Admissions in general? Okay.
Did you see any larger number of applications being incomplete because you had a higher number coming in?
We, in the last 2 years, there's more incomplete applications because we have provided an online form. Actually, the last 3 years, because we provided an online form. You used to be able to apply, you had to fill out everything on paper and mail it or bring it in. Now, step one is to fill out an online form. And then some people don't get around to completing the rest of it, but we have all of their initial information. So those numbers have gone up, for sure, since we've had an online, because it's easy to do that first step. But it does connect with how many people know about Scholars Academy, and to at least have filled out the online application. So I thought that's an interesting piece of data to look at.
That's step one, right? Online is step one.
Yeah, step one, and then following with the testing and the nomination forms. Okay, so we have a couple of things that I'm asking for approval on this evening. One of them being Discovery Education. Discovery Education is an online platform for science and some other subjects content. We have had Discovery Ed with grant money for many years until we spent out that grant money. And for the last few years, we've been using Discovery Ed. We've been using ESSER funding to pay for it because it's not a cheap platform. It's around $3,500, $3,600 a year. I haven't brought it to the board because it's a lower than threshold amount of money to spend. But because ESSER money is running out, I would like to get ESSER money to pay for a 3-year renewal rather than a single-year renewal, so that we can spend it. And because we're asking the board to encumber money for 3 continuous years more than a single-year renewal, that is something that requires board vote. So the threshold is not high, but it does require multi-year renewals. So I was asking for a renewal on that, but it will be funded with grant money. Questions about that?
Would it be renewed each year, or you're saying? that it would be prepaid?
This is I want to sign a 3-year. That's the cost for 3 years.
For the 3 years.
Total, yeah.
Each year is there money set aside in year one for the 3 years in the budget?
I will pay that money upfront
Okay,
for a 3-year renewal. So it won't expire for 3 more years. It won't be a yearly bill. It'll be a
Okay.
single bill for 3 years. The second thing is that, our liability, coverages every year expire on the 1st of April. So they are up for renewal right now. We did meet with our insurance, carrier, or the person who handles our insurance, package. And he did go through the whole package with us. If you want to look at the book, the binder, I have one hard copy of the binder that has all the information, but there are no changes. This is the same insurance, the same carrier, the same package. You'll see that there have been some increases in some of the prices. The workman's comp is the only one that's a significant increase, and that's just because it's going off of head count of how many employees that we have, and adding some positions that we've added, plus adding bus drivers has made our actual number of employees go up, which is why that number is going up more than some of the other and the other pieces. We did say, this is a 9% increase overall. Are there any ways to get any of these prices down? And he did come back to us. If you look, we do have a $1,000 deductible on our our property insurance bill. And he did say that if we increase our deductible to $5,000, he could take that down by $355, and a deductible $10,000 would take it down by $474. So small decreases for an increase in deductible. It's something we can do for a small change. We have not made a claim on our property insurance, so it's not a huge savings for a increase in deductible, but just wanted to put that out there as an option. But we do obviously need to have insurance policies, so kind of where it is.
So that 355 is, he's literally saying a one-time, it's not like up for something. It's
No, just that overall 7,317 would decrease by $355 if we increase our deductible from $1,000 to $5,000.
just $1,000 risk.
$4,000 risk for $355, yeah. I think that's not a huge,
And the automobile, 3,000 is for 3 buses?
yes,
That's actually surprisingly low.
yes, it is. It is very low.
I was also curious because I know we are going to talk about bus too. Is that part of the budget for the bus? Okay.
We separate out that policy into the bus budget as part of the bus budget, yes.
Probably not the workers' comp for the driver though.
Right. No, we don't, that's an individual employee, so that's not significant enough.
and this is a fixed contract, so if there's any changes in the year of this policy, the premium doesn't adjust for that, like fewer people or more people, what happens to the workers' comp?
It's a year end, it's based on the audit. So it's whatever's in our audit, that's what we're charged. So at the year end, they will true it up for whatever the audit says.
Okay.
Are these the same carriers as last
year?
year?
And we've worked with Scott for years and years and years and years, and he, they do all of the going out and trying to find the best rates for us to bring back the best rates. And we did obviously ask those questions in our meeting of, did you go out and, do some comparison shopping, and, and Utica is still, the best price for what we need. So, he felt like this was the best package to offer us. Okay, so, do we want to?
You gotta vote on this. Now, is everybody ready to vote? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the 3-year contract renewal for Discovery Education. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Mike.
But also entertain a motion to approve insurance renewals as presented by the executive director.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Just to clarify, that's the, with the 1K deductible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the $1,000 deductibles.
do a better job than I did.
And I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Thank you.
I mean, that's how the 1,000 is this year too, so we didn't really.
Yes,
Change.
yes, just no changes.
Yeah.
We just needed that.
Mhm.
Okay, everybody's still good with that?
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. So that motion does pass. And we'll go to the next slide.
Do you want me to do this now, or would you like to move the discussions to your,
Do whatever you're comfortable.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. We could do it either way. Okay, yeah, so I'm not gonna actually talk specifically about where we're doing, just to explain that where we are in the process. We are in the preliminary planning process for next year. Hiring process has begun. We are starting interviews, have posted some positions, trying to make sure that we are, getting ahead of other schools, hopefully in hiring talent for positions that we know we have available. We have asked our staff to let us know if they are not returning as well. So we are working on that staffing piece. We are going to discuss a little bit later about bus transportation planning and the options that we have regarding what we are going to do for the buses for next year. And then also looking at master scheduling to include what are the enrichment and middle school elective options going to look like? How are we going to be making any kind of changes to the academic program? And in my, yearly things that I'm speaking with the board about, that will be part of the May board meeting, is when I will come with any changes that we're going to be making to the academic program, enrichments, electives, all of that will be presented as what the next year's academic program will look like in the May board meeting. Any questions about any of that? Okay, and then the bigger topic to discuss is the 5th grade. And we're going to kind of go through a presentation that has been shared with you. Please, I think it'd be better to just slide by slide rather than waiting till the end. So if you have questions as we go through, please stop me and we can discuss as we go anything we want to talk about. So this is the current 4th grade students that we are discussing. So just for the history for everyone to understand, when these students who are currently in 4th grade were in 2nd grade, we were very hopeful that we were going to be having an expansion. And as such, we decided that we would start by adding a 3rd grade to our school. We did have an extra classroom space available, so we added a third grade classroom. And so for the 21-22 school year, we did have 3 3rd grades. That added 14 students to the ADM of the school. And so we went from 42nd graders to 54 3rd graders. That was 3 sections of 18. And the reason that we did 3rd grade, for those of you who don't remember, or anyone listening in, is that we had written it into the NC Access grant that a lot of families don't know they have a gifted child when they're 4 years old. A lot of families don't know until their child goes to school that their child is not like other children. And when they start receiving feedback from teachers of like, wow, your kid is gifted. And sometimes it doesn't happen until they have the universal screening in 2nd grade. And so we thought that specifically for low socioeconomic students, but for students in general, that a good opportunity to get into the Scholars Academy, since kindergarten is the best time, right? Because we have the most seats available, another good time to get in would be in 3rd grade. And so we had written into the Access grant that we were always going to have a big jump in 3rd grade of adding students into our school. And so that was, okay, this is where we're going to start our expansion, is with this 3rd grade class. And that's what we did that year with that group of students. Anything history-wise questions? Okay. So now this year that those students moved to 4th grade, because we thought okay, the expansion's on hold. We're not going to, and we don't have any more room in this to add another class. We're not going to add another third grade. And we decided not to replace any fourth graders that left. So we ended up going from 54 to 52 students for this school year. So that's how many we have. 52 students was too many students to put into 2 homerooms academically. That is just, I mean, so other schools do it. 26 is not a huge class size in a traditional school, but 26 is a big size for us. And it was something we didn't feel comfortable with. So we said, all right, this is a 1-year fix, and we're going to make sure that we're taking care of these students that we added to our school. And so currently, math, there are 4 groups. So there's less than 18 students in a classroom. In language arts, in science and art, they're in 3 groups. And in French, Spanish, and Chinese, they're also in 3 groups where they picked up French. So they're getting 2 foreign languages at a time for 2/3 of the year, so that they'll get each of those 3 languages for 2/3 of the year. This is going to help that group of students to be able to help make an informed decision about their foreign language choice for next year's 5th graders. And the only time that they're spending it in those bigger groups of 26 is in social studies, music, PE, and SEL. And so those were the ones where the least impact of having more students, not as much one-on-one time was needed in those classes. So it was a challenge to schedule, and we are definitely don't want to keep doing it that way, but it worked for the students for this year. So looking into next year, we need to figure out what we're going to do to make sure that we take care of this group of students. So in this presentation, there are basically 3 options. One option, they're listed as option 1, and then option as 2A and B, because those next 2 options are going to be very similar. Just look at how many students we might add. But in option 1, we would make no changes to the number of students in our school. So the only way we would be adding children to the school is if they were lottery priority seats, meaning one of the things in our admissions policy that gives a priority, like a sibling of a current student, like a child who's considered EDS, like a child who's returning from an educational opportunity, all those priorities that are in our lottery. Those are the only seats we'd be adding, and we would not let it get over 52. So if 2 children leave, we would add 2 lottery priority students. If 4 students leave, we'd add, we'd add 4, but we would not go back up higher. We keep 2 homerooms for 26, but the only subject we would be able to go to 3 sections for is for math. And we would be able to do that currently with our staff. We wouldn't have to hire anybody to actually make that happen. So the advantages of choosing option 1, we wouldn't be adding more additional burden to our space constraints, understanding that we have limited gym space, cafeteria space, carpool. We don't have to have any change to our current staffing structure. Our 5th and 6th grade teachers would not be at all affected by this, because there would simply be 2 homerooms of 5th graders. And so their entire model would look exactly the way that it does this year. The teaching load for our enrichment students, there wouldn't be an extra section of art or an extra section of PE, because we're adding a 3rd section. And there wouldn't be any significant changes to our master schedule that would make us have to have new challenges that we can't foresee. Obviously, challenges is that we're going to have larger class sizes. 26 is not an ideal class size for younger students. 5th graders are kind of on that cusp. You'll see in middle school, larger class sizes are typical. In a typical middle school, you're going to see class sizes at 26 to 30 students. That's not unheard of. But 5th grade, they're still kind of needy. So that is kind of a large size. One of the other challenges is that there may not be any seats available for middle school, including lottery priority. If no children leave the school, even siblings may not be able to get a seat in the school. We do have this concern that our access grant funds may be at jeopardy, because that would be we are not expanding. We are halting all expansion efforts we are showing no increase in our student population. And if we didn't have enough lottery priority students on the wait list, our overall school ADM could go down if enough students left that grade level that we didn't have lottery priority seats to fill those seats. Our overall ADM and obviously our funding that goes along with that could go down. Questions on that first option?
And when you say ADM could go down, I mean, the lottery priority is there, but we also have waiting lists based on applications. So we can't, can we not give it to the waiting list, say the lottery priority?
We could, I mean, that could be a caveat to this, is that we say we are maintaining at 52, period. And fill those seats. My thought process was that we would, in this scenario, want that number to go down. Because the whole idea is that if we're gonna have this many students, we would want to slide back down towards our regular middle school size, which is 46. And that I wouldn't want to necessarily keep adding kids to stay at 52. That wouldn't be the goal. The goal would be to bring in those lottery priority students that we wanted to make sure had a seat in our school. That was my thought process there.
To reduce back to normal, except those with priorities that try
To accommodate. So, yeah.
How many, are you able to say how many priority seats we have right now?
This year, there are two.
There are two.
There are two lottery priority seats for 5th grade.
There will be one.
Don't remember.
So I just checked, that's why.
Yeah, I don't remember, but there are two for this. Any other questions about this option? Okay. All right, so option 2A and option 2B are both, we do add a third section, but there are a couple different ways that we can do that. So option 2A being that we add 8 students to our overall ADM, which gets us to 3 sections of 20 students. So that's for 60 total students, going from 52 to 60. We would be adding a middle school teacher using the increased revenue. When we look at the slide in a minute, there's a slide that shows you that financial impact in a table format. But you'll see that the middle school teacher's cost is covered by that increase in ADM. In option 2B, instead of getting to 20, we get to a size of 22, which is our typical 5th grade class size. So that would be adding 14 students to the overall ADM. So that gets to 66. And in that case, we'd be adding 1.5 middle school teachers, that half being either being a half-time teacher or that being using additional availability of teachers that are currently in our building, but the equivalency of a teacher and a half. And those increased revenue, obviously, again, would cover that cost. One of the advantages of adding the extras is that it would provide us the opportunity to have 3 groups of math for grades 5, 6, and 7, because I would have the additional math capacity. We have had a goal of having 3 groups for math in all of the middle school grades for many years, but we just haven't found the right math teacher. I do have some potential candidates this year, so I feel hopeful that we could make that happen. The advantages of this going to option B obviously would be that there'd be smaller classes. We would have the increased revenue to be able to pay for the additional staff. And we would be able to continue showing that we are committed to this expansion effort that we have been trying to make happen. Challenges. Anyone who has tried to have a committee meeting here on a Friday morning can tell you that, we use every bit of space in this building. And so obviously adding another section, of middle school means, that elective locations and enrichment locations and all the different space considerations that are already a challenge, continue to be a challenge. We do not have an extra upstairs classroom, so we will have to have a 5th grade group that would be rotating to a downstairs classroom. The exact location of that downstairs classroom, I'm not ready to discuss because there are a lot of moving pieces that are involved in shuffle of people, but it would have to be a downstairs location for that 5th grade classroom. We would have to, for the enrichment teachers that aren't currently teaching 3 sections of 5th grade, that's music and PE, we would have another section, so that's 1 more class for those teachers to teach. Because there will be 3 5th grades and 2 6th grades, for 2 years of that happening, because obviously there'll be 3 6th grades and 6th grade, there's going to be a little bit of not so cohesive approach to that 5th and 6th grade team. Right now, they have 4 core teachers. They see all of those 90 students, and it's just one solid team. Now there will be more moving pieces because there will be more teachers involved in making sure we have that 5th grade class covered. So it makes it a little bit, maybe a little bit less organized for that 5th and 6th grade team. So it's a challenge. It's not something, unsurmountable. And one of the, the other concerns is that when we bring new students into this building who haven't been exposed to Scholars Academy for kindergarten through 4th grade, there's a transition. And so when you're bringing in 8 students versus 14 students, thinking about a classroom full of students, that's anywhere from 4 to 8 new students in a teacher's room that they have to basically teach that student how to be a Scholars Academy student. And so that does take a little bit of transition, and that does have a little bit of a burden on the teachers in making sure that transition is smooth. Questions about either of those options?
Transition, even with the previous option, you say we have 2 LP students, right? So even that is the part of the transition, even for 2 kids. Right?
It's always a
How does it
it's always
challenge
a
anybody
yes.
who comes into
Yes.
scholars and then a part?
Yeah.
Like that?
And the older they are,
The older
the
they are,
more
it's harder.
significant that gap can be, but not necessarily. We often will have, students that come in the middle school and you didn't know they did, you never knew that they didn't go to school here. We have 2 new 8th graders this year that you wouldn't know 2 weeks in, you wouldn't know that they were new. And then there's others that, 2nd graders that are like, whoa, this is not what it was like in my old school. So, I mean, it is kid dependent, but it is a challenge to at least consider.
Ari, how many kids are on average in the other grades homeroom?
So in middle school, we go to 23 in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But in grades 3 through 5, it's 22. So this would get it to the regular size. The option 2B would get us to a regular size 5th grade,
Got it, thanks.
but 3 homerooms, yeah.
Apparently I read these like many times. One thing I didn't realize I had a question was, so for 2A, that means only 5th grade have 3 maths. The other grades are still maintaining 2 maths like before. That's one. And I also have a other thought. So 2 years ago, when you were creating the 3rd grade, you chose 18 versus 22 of the novel size. So can you share some of the thoughts and comparisons here?
So we were using 18 as what we're using as the long-term expansion plan. So in the long-term expansion plan at that time, we were going to have in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we're going to have 4 sections of 18. That was so we were adding, that was the model. And it was gonna go 4 sections of 18 back to middle school, 3 sections of 25. And it was gonna allow us to be able to add a lot of extra students in 3rd grade. That was the vision at the time. Any other questions on this one?
If the teachers weighed in, what they think.
They have. Yes, and it depends on which teachers we're talking to. We're, having different thoughts on this. Because it's more than, a few teachers that are involved. But I have talked to the 5th and 6th grade team about, this plan and, they have the same concerns, right? It's which do you want? Bigger classes or more staff on your team to manage together? And there's challenges, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But, there's their feedback is included in some of these challenges that we've listed.
You have enough staff for the enrichment programs, or will you have to?
We will. We're not. Staffing is something, we have to discuss in closed session, so I can share more specific staffing thing when we talk in closed session.
Has there been feedback solicited from the parents, either formally or informally? Or is it even appropriate to do that? I'm not sure, but I'm curious if you, and this is for the group, not necessarily for Ari, but if you're a parent, what do you think is best for your kid?
The parents will have the opportunity to give feedback, but the board needs to set the strategic decision making about class sizes in ADM. That is a board level decision because that's a strategic decision because this is tied to expansion. So absolutely going to be looking for, and we're going to talk about communication on another slide, but looking for some feedback from parents on the, some of the challenges and things that they would like to see happen. But as far as the actual decision, no.
And as a board, we've decided, right, so I think the last 5 years, we've talked about expansion. This was one way to step into, right, as we've got the NC Access grant. This was one step in towards supporting that strategic objective, right? And so and we added that grade for class, 3rd grade. And now that we have a topic to talk about expansion as the board direction, right? So what do we do next? And it's almost after 5 years. We are at a pivotal point. We need to make a decision on how we go forward as a board for the next 5 years. This decision also is dependent on how we talk about expansion, what we want to do in the next 5 years. So these are the options that the administration has come forward saying, okay, if you want to continue the objective that we stated the last 5 years, we need to continue to show expansion as for the NC Access grant to be used at school. These are the options that we have to vote on.
Is there certain percent increase that we're expected to have each year for the grants? We're
They want that we got audited and we got marked as non-compliant for our growth. So we were supposed to show the growth that we put in our actual application, which required us to leave this building and expand. So there is no number that's going to make us compliant. But what the concern is they said, as long as you're showing effort, we're not going to pull the funds. My concern is that we say, no, we're we give up, we are not expanding. That is not, they're going to say, okay, well then, that's the whole purpose of this grant. So we can no longer fund school for this effort.
So my thought is, the expansion started and we're not back down to those original numbers, right? So it's not like we added X amount of students and that same amount increased. So from where we were, we have still expanded. And so that's what I was trying to understand if they had a number but to your point, it's more around we were supposed to be looking to move into the building. So,
right. Can we continue, even if we're not doing exactly what we said, can we continue to show that we are trying versus just being like, no, out, right?
Yeah, because it sounds like they're expecting like a percent increase
Well, they're expect-
Over-
well,
They
they're
were
expecting
they were- they were expecting us to follow the table that showed how we were going to increase our economically disadvantaged student population by expanding. And we're unable to increase our economically disadvantaged student population if we don't grow. It's not, I mean, even if we filled every single seat that was available with an economically disadvantaged students, we still wouldn't meet the thresholds we're trying to meet because there just aren't enough students to add to make those numbers happen. So we have to grow to meet the objectives of the grant.
Just a couple more slides.
Yeah, there are. So the next slide shows you the cost comparison, just really high overview is just for table loving people of the world. And showing you what does that look like for each of the different options for how many kids we have in 5th grade, how many kids we have in the total school, what does that look like from a revenue perspective of adding that number of students, and then what would be the staffing costs associated with each of those different scenarios. So there are those, I mean, staffing is the majority of the cost. There are some more smaller incidental costs that could be associated. If we are filling those with economic disadvantaged students, there could be some costs associated, and there could be some small instructional costs, but nothing significant enough to put it up here. But just to kind of show you what that looks like, showing that option 2B does actually provide us a little cushion in a year where, budgets is tighter due to the, less federal funds that are going to be available. Just wanted to show it to you in table form because it was suggested to me that that would be a good way to look at it. Questions with the money?
It's not a question, but a comment, because this is coupled with if the annual giving campaign also trends down, then this would definitely impact, the operational part of it, maintaining the infrastructure.
Right. So just understanding what does that mean after 5th grade, because these children have 3 more years after that. So assuming that let's going for the assumption that no additional expansion actually happened after that, we would just do the lottery replacement of students due to attrition unless the numbers dip below 46. And so that ties to your question, Dasu, is that 46 is the number would we shrink down to if we didn't have people to fill the seats. And then in options 2 and should be 2, that was 2 and 2A and 2B, not 2 and 3. In 6th grade, it would look very much the same as what they were in 5th grade because those teachers that were teaching 5th and 6th grade would continue to teach 5th and 6th grade. They might just have different sections, but the team would stay the same. And then in 7th and 8th grade, what would end up happening is that the 6th grade teachers would be looping up to teach for those next 2 years, would be looping up to teach 7th grade students in those 2 years until that group of students aged out of the school. So just kind of from a staffing perspective, what does that look like? It looks like the 5th and 6th grade team would just have a little bit of flexibility of what they were teaching for a few years to account for that. Obviously, if there was an option for expansion, it would help us to be able to build out that middle school faster because we'd already have 1 grade that was ready to go. We'd be able to add a second. So in 1 or 2 years, we could be completely built out for our middle school. So that would give us that leg up in making that expansion happen faster.
So how many classes would that be, like, when you said in the future? It would be 3,
Well, we wanted to go to 3, yeah, 3 for each of the middle schools.
so 3 classes for 6, 7, 8.
Yep. Okay. So whatever we decide to do, regardless, one of the things that I think, is a big misstep on my part is not getting on a Zoom with all of the current 4th grade families at the beginning of the year to explain and answer questions. So I want to make sure, we do a better job of the communication this year. So we want to schedule a Zoom in late April with all of our returning and any of our new 5th grade families and explain what's going to happen, right? So all of what is 5th grade going to look like talking about the curriculum and teaching structure. We won't be able to name specific teachers at that time, but what does the teaching structure look like? What is it going to be? What does it look like to transition from elementary school to middle school? When we talk about the parent survey, we'll talk a little bit about that transition from elementary to middle. We will be having a 5th grade band next year. So talking about their choices of music for band and chorus, talking about their foreign language choices of French, Spanish, or Chinese, and then, give the parents the opportunity to follow up with a Google form and ask any questions, give any feedback, ideas, so that we're only in late April and we still have time to adjust and make sure the parents have an opportunity for feedback on how this works. Anything? And that is, okay, transition, we will obviously, if we have new students, and even if we just have a lot of priority students, need to make sure that we have a transition plan for them. We always invite our new scholars for a day to come out in May where we talk about our school. We have a summer camp that we have for the last, this will be year 3 of the summer camp. We've had it for rising 1st through 4th. We're going to extend that to 5th grade this year so that any new 5th graders that we add to our school would have the opportunity to come meet other students and work with our teachers so that we can have an understanding of who they are socially, emotionally, who they are as academic students. And also as part of the NC Access grant, we do have a parent advisory council that has been working for the last 2 years on some initiatives. And one of those initiatives, Mr. Kano, our counselor, is working on launching a peer helper program that's going to actually pair all of our new students with in middle school with a buddy student. And she's got a whole curriculum that she's going to be training students on how to be peer helpers. So that will help with that transition as well. So, looking at all these different options, obviously I wanted to come with a recommendation. My recommendation is that we do add some students. I do think that that's what's best for the students to not be in a classroom with 26 kids, so that we go into the in-between, not so many kids, but some kids, and go to 3 homerooms of 20. This does allow us enough money to add another teacher. It does maintain our commitment to expansion. It's a little bit less number of new students for that transitional purposes. And the thing is that if we only put 20, we could go to 22 or 23 in 7th grade. So it would give another opportunity for new students to be added next year as they go into 6th or 7th grade if we choose. So we could go to 22, we could go to 23 in 6th or 7th grade. So that is all I have.
That was very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Moving part and nothing involved with it.
Yes, but to me, we made a commitment to these families by adding a 3rd grade. And so I think we owe this group of families and students, we really thought we were going to move. It's not like we didn't think we were going to move. We really thought we were going to move next year. And so in planning for the 4th grade this year, it was, hey, this is what we're doing for right now because we're going to be in a new building. Now knowing that we may not move before these kids are out of school, we made this commitment to them. We owe them a good, solution that's well thought out and planned. So I just want to make sure that we took the time to have a good discussion about it.
We'll hold the vote until after close. We'll get a little bit of personnel detail at that time.
In terms of, but on the additional staff or teacher, right? Do we know what, it's not a particular subject you're thinking of, right? Are you thinking of any?
Because that's tied to specific people, I'm not ready to discuss staffing and.
But it's additional, we
Open
need
session.
additional.
But it's adding a staff headcount to the middle school.
Definitely needed.
End of your section?
Yep.
Okay, thank you much. We'll pass it to Erica for the governance committee.
Yeah, excuse me, we have quite a bit going on. We met earlier this month. The governance committee talked a little bit more about the April 19th town hall. We would like board members to attend in person if you can. We will have a Zoom option for any community members, but community members are going to be invited, you know, to come to it in person if they like. We are developing ask the board form where the community can submit questions ahead of time. We would encourage questions ahead of time because while we'll, you know, take any questions at that moment, there might be questions that we can't answer. Certain questions we just don't know. So we will, you know, just say, hey, we don't know, we'll get back to you. So, you know, the more advanced notice we have, the better. And we'll also, we'll probably keep that form up too. We'll see, you know, how it works. If we get feedback and, you know, we get responses through that. It might be, I think we plan to just keep it there as an ongoing basis. So that we will send out a communication to the community regarding the town hall, how to participate and all that good stuff. So, and then we started the ED evaluation process. The survey has gone to Ms. Piper. Last week, Catherine and I met with the staff just to give them a brief overview of, you know, the purpose of the evaluation and, you know, begging for their feedback for one more survey, you know, that they're asked to do. So there has been some participation so far, but, you know, if for any staff listening, we obviously encourage participation. The more the better. This is really, you know, the only opportunity we have to, you know, just, you know, get an idea of what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. So hopefully we get, you know, a lot of participation in that survey.
And the survey is shorter, right?
Yes, yes, we were able to customize the survey this year, which, I mean, it was some customization to a certain amount. I mean, there's still questions on there that they're just not gonna know. And so we just put, I don't know, but we were able to remove some sections. So hopefully it's a lot shorter and hopefully it's more meaningful that way too. So we'll see. You know, we'll get those. We've asked the staff to complete the survey before spring break. So that gives them what, about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks to fill that out. So I'll send an email reminder this week, just, you know, asking for more feedback. And then once we get that, we will send everything off to Katie, who will put it all together for us and write up a comprehensive summary of the feedback and results with respect to that. Board recruitment efforts, just encourage people to, or encourage board members to try to solicit anybody who'd like to be on the board. I haven't heard of anybody, any interests. So, you know, getting a little nervous. So,
Maybe to talk to you after we finish?
no. I'm just, me personally, I haven't, you know, I've tried my best, but without coming off desperate, which I don't know if that's worked or not, but just again, encourage people to participate, to join, and help out. So just, you know, I would ask all the board members, just remember that, keep that in the back of your head when you're talking to somebody. Okay, so the next thing, so North Carolina Association of Public Charter Schools, I had mentioned it last meeting, and we looked into it a little bit more, and there's actually 2 different charter school. One's associations and one's a coalition. I sat in on a webinar regarding a new bill regarding there's a new, I think it's in one of the houses of the government regarding funding for public schools. So they were talking about advocacy. And so I reached out to the woman afterwards. She reached out to me, asked me what school I was with. And I told her, and I used that opportunity to ask her, like, what's the difference between the coalition and the association? And she was very nice. And she said they both work together. the coalition seemed a little bit more politically like motivated. Like they can back certain candidates, candidates can like endorse them. So it looks a little bit more like I said, politically motivated, but the biggest difference is like the membership price is like double for the coalition. So my recommendation is still, let's join the association, see how it works. She said many people are members, many charter schools are members of both, some are members of one, some are members of the other. So I think joining the association makes more sense for us right now. So
are they related? Just different motivation?
they're different. They are different. One's a C3 organization. The association's it's a taxing code, which is so weird. But so their tax code's a C3 for the association. The coalition's a C6. So under those taxing codes, they can do certain things and they can't do certain things. And so, but like the webinar I sat through was hosted by both of them. So they're the same goals. It's just, I think, different ways of reaching those goals as far as, you know, where their money can go. So that's why I think the coalition seems to be more politically motivated and they can like endorse specific candidates and things like that.
So does the association not get into the politics surrounding it?
They do to the extent that they're lobbying, you know what I mean? They're lobbying for you know, certain
Increased funding?
yeah, in certain bills and things like that. But I don't think that they're endorsing certain candidates, like vote for this candidate because he's going to vote or she's going to vote for HR bill, whatever the number is, where I believe the coalition can do that.
And that was a concern about this getting into one of these groups
Right. And I'm not sure.
previous years.
Right. And I had discussed I also reached out to see what the political issue may have been last time. And at that point, there was, I'm not sure if many of you remember, but North Carolina was a focus because of the gender neutral bathroom issue. And I'm really not sure the exact what was actually going on as far as the association goes, but there was hesitancy from the school. My understanding was to join that association because it wasn't clear what their position was on that issue. So I think it's a non-issue. Yeah, now, obviously, if something like that does come up, I mean, as a member of the association, I feel like we're in a better position to direct how we want the association to present itself. So, I mean, I'm not saying issues like that aren't going to come up. They probably will come up, but I just feel like it's a better opportunity to express how we feel about it. So the membership for the association for half the year would be $884.25. And it's based on the ADM. So next year's billing would go on July, would be based on the ADM for 2023. So full year dues would be about $1,768.50. But again, depending on the ADM.
So is the recommendation to join now for half a year or just wait until the next?
Yeah, so we would like to join now because there is a convention coming up. That sounds like it would be really good if someone went to, like, you know, yeah, I know Ms. Piper wants to go, and honestly, it looks like something I might be interested too. I didn't have a look at the dates and things like that, so I do think that we should take advantage of that now. The membership.
So it's reduced.
It's
Registration fee?
yeah, she reduced it to half a year, but this was.
No, I'm sorry, for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I think it's for members only. Gotcha. But I'm not, don't quote me on that, but I believe so, or maybe reduced rates but I believe it's members. So I do think we should join for half the year. It also kind of gives us an idea of, you know, the sense of if is it worth it, you know, to continue on as well. And I believe we have money in our, is it the legal fund or professional development? professional development that would, cover those, so there shouldn't be any changes or increase to the budget.
If we were to vote to join for the half year, then it would be another vote in the beginning of the school year for the full year membership.
Yes. She just sent me this quote by email, but I will get, if we approve it tonight and there's a different amount, I'll come back and, let everybody know that there's the amount. If anything, it would be less, right? But there's that.
I did a quick look up on the difference between the C6 and the C3. So the C3 is more geared specifically for, among other things, to charitable, religious, educational, scientific, and anything to do with public safety. Just a quick summary here. And C6 is more for trade associations and more chambers of commerce, more for those reasons. So that may be, like real estate boards of trade, professional football leagues, things like that.
I wonder if it's like, in charter school, the big business.
Yes.
I'm wondering if maybe that's six, maybe there's more. I didn't look at the membership. I mean, I did look at the membership, but I didn't dive into like, okay, who's it run by, so that's good to know. But yeah, I mean, I think the half year membership is a good way to get our see what they would offer. So anybody have any other questions, concerns? Do you want to vote on that now? And
For the votes.
so with the next thing is board on track contract for the 2023-24 school year. It's up for renewal. They have agreed, or they have not increased our prices. I think, obviously board on track has some of its challenges, but once you play around with it, I guess it's okay. So that's up for renewal. We're suggesting that we renew that as well. And they do provide, I'll admit, they do provide good customer service, because when I reach out, they're always like, oh, let's hop on the phone and talk about it, which is great, but since they don't want to talk to you. But it's great. I mean, it is good. I mean, they're willing to help and, accommodate you. So I give them that. And they did just make improvements. So hopefully we'll see more improvements, but I think the price is reasonable. And like I said, they didn't increase the fees.
Ask me a question about, did we get other quotes? And I forgot to answer. We did not get new quotes this year. Last year, Letitia led a really extensive review of a bunch of different ones.
And I remember that.
And kind of went back and forth, and we thought we were getting a bad deal, but when we went and looked and you added all the components, matched what we were getting, it balanced out. So we didn't do the work again this year. We do like the meeting management, the documents, connecting the meeting management, the document storage, and then the evaluation. We also use the board assessment.
I'm sure there's a lot more, like with anything, there's a lot more functionality that we could get into.
Things and the things.
Yeah, exactly.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, there's trains. I mean, I know I do the agendas on there. We do the evaluation. So I definitely think that we're using it. I mean, we would still need, without it, we would need to, we would need something in its replacement. It's not like a resource we could just get rid of because it's not being used. We need a replacement for it. So we would ask to renew that contract as well. And then we have some employment related contracts to discuss and close. Yeah, I mean, the quick update was we did not meet this month because I was sick. And I have not rescheduled yet, but that is on my list of things to do. We still are working on paid time off policy and gift policy. That is it.
Yeah, expansion didn't really have a public meeting. We, because we actually had a public meeting right before the last board meeting. But during this month, we actually did talk to two different sources. One is for a assessment of our current building. The other one is trying to talk to our architecture to see what we can do with our building for a in-place expansion. We don't really make much progress from there because we had the inspection, but we haven't had the inspection back yet. But we are considering options to make our current home better, if possibly bigger. And the next expansion meeting is scheduled to be next Wednesday, April 5th, right after drop off. So welcome to join.
And next committee update is the DEI committee. Dominique.
Oh, okay.
Just zooming you.
Oh, you're too kind. You are just so kind. Yeah, so we did have a meeting last week, a couple weeks ago, this month. No.
In March.
In March. We did have a meeting to check in on the status of the upcoming Multicultural Experience Day on April 7th. We're all very excited about it. I'm sure you've seen your children bring home work that's related to this event. My daughter was very excited to finish her flag at home and take it back to school, working on it with her buddy. We do check in with the staff committee to see how we can support them. The need right now is for the afternoon portion, some form of entertainment. We're looking for a cultural experience. That would be, I think it's after 12, this is afternoon, I don't have a specific time, as little as 30 minutes or so. It could be a speaker or a performer. I know the folks in this room and the folks who are listening in have connections or are willing to do this themselves. It's just 30 minutes. Come on in. It's such a great day. It's the day right before spring break when we already have the kids so excited from the morning portion of the event. So looking forward to the emails getting flooded with everyone volunteering. What's the best email? Who should they reach out to? If they want to sign up.
To probably to the line.
All right. Everyone knows Miss Eli's email. So please let her know how you can support their efforts the afternoon of April 7th. We also continue to review our action plan. And one of the things that we touched on in our most recent meeting was how we can partner with other committees, because there is overlap with our initiatives and goals. So we will be looking at doing that cross-pollination coming up as we wrap up this school year. Everyone is welcome. We generally meet the last Friday of the month. Always recommend checking Board on Track, just in case meetings are rescheduled.
Experience or fair, is that what it's called? Are they calling it fair?
I have it as
I have the fair in my head, but anyway, experience.
Yeah.
Is that open to the community to come to, or is it just students?
No, my understanding is just students. But it sounds like you're already
I'm
conjuring
volunteering. No, I'm volunteering and I just didn't know.
Some of the grade levels had reached out to volunteers.
Yeah, right.
Because the kids are rotating through the classrooms, and so there's like, their classroom is gonna be hosting whatever country, and so some of them are gonna be out traveling around with the other students, so. I know third grade.
Yeah, so I
asked for
didn't
volunteers.
know if it was open to the public, because I was gonna say it was, that people might want more representation there, but it's not open to the public. I'll put my board name tag on if it helps, but that was my point asking.
Gotcha. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the wonderful pictures that will be posted on Facebook and shared with the community from the speakers and the performers. Concludes my update.
Thank you. Our next person is Dusty for the Educational Excellence Committee. And I need to find your presentation.
Go to the next. Yeah. So we have a few slides put together to summarize the whole the parent survey 22-23 year. Just wondering what the years were right there. Thank you for all the parents in the community who have responded. Just to give a little bit of background, so this parent survey is conducted every 2 years by the board and the administration. The last 20 years in 20 and 21, we were heavily focused on COVID. So we did not do a real parent survey that we intend to. And the purpose of the survey is primarily to get feedback from our parent community to then define our strategic direction, right, for the board and the administration on how we operate. So some of the comparison you'll see is from the 2018 survey pretty much, because we did not have one since then. So it was open from February 17th to March 6th. So we had about 151 respondents. That, you know, it could mean about 78 or 80 families, but 151 respondents. We had response for each child you had, so we could gather level of data and that corresponds to a child as opposed to a family. And the data you'll see is summarized based on several topics. The questions were focused on our SEL education, child-specific needs, DEI initiatives that we are doing at school, the academics, how we volunteer in the communication, and in general, just gather some feedback. Slide, please. So we did a word cloud on why our parents chose scholars, and it's good to see that a lot of the words that popped up. And if there are any experts in word cloud, maybe we'll take some help next time to remove some of the general terms. But in general, it shows that some themes and words that popped out with based on the feedback that the parents have given. Right, so we're looking for a gifted education, the curriculum that it's child focused. It matches up with the differentiated education. So the academics is primary, and parents are looking at scholars for academics. So a lot of those characteristics that we think scholars, the mission statement supports, is also shown in those word cloud feedback that parents are giving. Slide. Screen technology problem. It's all right. That's good. Okay. And the next word cloud was just why parents continue to choose to stay at Scholars Academy. I think one of the big words that you can see is teachers. So our parent community loves our teachers, and they're one of the primary reasons they stick and stay on. The rest of the words you see are in a curriculum, the education, and how we are focused on the child and the gifted teaching that we provide. So it was just good to see, the commentary and the feedback coming from parents on why they continue to choose scholars and why it continues.
This is from the text of the survey. Yeah. Commentary. And the next two slides will talk about just the SEL in general. Like we've asked, in what areas do you believe SEL program is helping a child? I mean, some of the highlighted numbers are the ones that show the highest responses, right? So social awareness seems to be highly rated. You can see pretty much, I think it's evenly distributed amongst the characteristics that we are the SEL focuses on, right? About self-management of self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, right? I think most we do see about 17 respondents say it's not helping, but predominantly we see that the parent community has shown that the SEL seems to be working for them. And then there are other topics are, do they see transition struggles at what grades? The 4th to 5th is the highest, and I think that's something that we administration recognize as well. And that when we talk, when
as Piper talked about, even expanding the fifth grade, that topic is well understood by the administration staff. And does your child have friends at school? I think, we predominantly see, yes, we do have, it doesn't matter if they are male, female, right? Or, chose not to respond, but I think we are doing a good job of having kids have friends at school, I suppose. Next slide, please. Continuing on, just more of the SEL. In what areas do you believe an SEL program is helping your child? I think we've broken it down further by grade, and you can see social awareness tends to be higher at the lower grades, and at a higher grade, sixth, responsible decision making. I think those are the areas that as the kids grow into higher grades from elementary to middle, I think we would want to see those responsible decision making and the social awareness skills continue to grow. I think the numbers do reflect that it is helping, in those topics. And the other question on whether they enjoy coming to school, I think it's overwhelmingly mostly kids to enjoy coming to school.
I would think every middle schooler would hate going to school, so it's great.
It's good to see it.
We didn't ask the children.
Yeah, that's very
Parents would love it.
Yeah.
I think again another cloud version for the SEL on additional support, that requires for students. I think the self decision and I think more for social awareness and self awareness, self decision making is something that the parents are looking for the kids to, I would say, get more on. I think that's something that needs to be. If SEL, if there's any work to be done in SEL, I think that social awareness and self decision making as they get into higher grade. It's a challenging years for any middle schooler, like going from elementary to middle, and that's the area that needs to continue. So SEL we do focus on those, but we are, I think that area of focus, as we continue, we're doing the right thing as. Right, the next topic was just a question on child-specific needs. Are there any specific needs that your child needs that needs to be met by school was the question. And I think the answer we asked was if it was not yes always, so yes mostly is in the nose and I don't know, right? I think can you state what are those additional needs that you would need, right, for the child specific requirement. So the commentary, as summarized, it shows that they are looking for more teacher support for child's outside class. Again, the more predominantly was that was answered by the middle school kids, parents, stating that the middle school parents would like to have additional support for their kid outside the class. That was the answer.
What does that mean?
Like tutoring or like classes in math or questions in math.
I think that the words were like generic some, but some like I need additional support from the teachers outside just the classroom. If my kid is not going along with the cohort and we need some help, it'll be outside the class and they're asking for it.
So potentially like office hours?
They were suggested, but I think those were like some of the commentary.
Was that written in?
It was written in the word. It's we opened up as a commentary box to say what additional support you need. It's not a big list.
And I would say, I mean, so I was a sixth grader. The teachers are all available during like class time, but does my son take advantage of it? No. So I would say to anyone listening, there is support outside of class, but do the kids feel comfortable asking because they're trying to hang out with their friends at that time? So
A lot of the teachers offer support during lunch.
Yep.
Extra help during lunch. There's most fifth and sixth grade have flex time.
Yep.
Where the teachers are available for help. There's homeroom time while the teachers are, so those opportunities are there. But as she said, like, it's not necessarily that the kids are taking advantage of it.
So it's not like someone reached out to their teacher and you said no, you didn't get that from.
No.
There's sixth grade math, well, I'm in sixth grade math is tough, and there's a lot going on. And there were some kids that, and it's hard for us as parents to help with homework because I don't remember any of that stuff. But yeah, we have been told numerous times that there is support there. You just have to search it out. And I think as a sixth grader, they're learning, because high school, no one's gonna, give you that time on a platter. So, I mean, I think that's kind of part of learning to grow up too, is they have to go ask for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you want them to know it's there, and whether they take advantage of it or not, it's, that's up to them, but
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure that they know it's there. Okay.
Yeah, they should, if they read their emails, they should.
Yeah, and you can see if the school is meeting individually, you can see yes always and yes mostly. It's like if you add that up, it's 98%, right?
Yeah.
So these are commentary from the rest. I think a few others for the time management, execution, functioning, and sports and physical activity. That's the other. So the next topic is just on the DEI. The questions were more focused on saying, do you feel that the school is making reasonable efforts in terms of race diversity and gender diversity? I think and this is one which we compared from 2018 data as well. So you can see there's definitely improvement. It's good that the community is also recognizing some of the efforts of the board and the administration in regards to both those topics. I'll take some help, Spiker, on this. Did a lot of research on the academics topic. I think this was the topic on homework independence and daily guidelines.
Yeah, these two questions were with regards to the students being able to complete their homework independently on the left. And so looking at it, it's in elementary school versus in middle school, most of the kids by middle school are able to mostly complete their homework independently without the assistance of their parents. Obviously that should trend up at younger students. Clearly K and 1 kid aren't very independent, so they're going to need a little bit more support. And then the second piece was about our homework time guidelines of how long students are spending on homework each night. And this is an area that I think this is definitely an area for growth for us as a school, being able to take the actual specific data and go grade by grade with teachers and sit down and show them what the data shows. I think is something that's an exercise that I want to do with staff. But looking at our elementary school, 92% of our students are working within that homework guideline. As it gets to middle school, those numbers are not where they should be. We do not want to see that less than half of our students are actually able to complete their homework in the amount of time that we expect them to be able to complete their homework. The executive function is independent. A lot of the parents chose both. They are working within the guideline, but they do also struggle with, the executive function. So that isn't necessarily, completely separate from those numbers, and they're tied to one or the other. Those first two columns are really what we're looking at.
And I would say this kind of goes along with are there other times to work or to ask teachers? There are also that flex time and that homeroom time is also additional time that those children could be using. I know some days my son comes home and he's almost done all his homework in flex time. Other days when his time management skills have been in the dumps, he's got more. And so that may be another topic to broach with the students is, hey, if you stop Googling random stuff in flex time, you'll have more help and more time to do this.
That agreed. That's a significant jump, from 92 to 46. So,
well, it's also a significant amount of freedom too. And so these kids have flex time and they can do whatever they want in flex time. I know 50% of kids would probably say, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
is the big jump from 4 to 5, like when you break it down?
I'm curious about that too. We broke it up into, it's broken up by individual grade, but, I just feel like that information, is too specific and tied. We're such a small school. You can't give that without, you can't give that data without releasing individual teachers' names. So for the, just for the confidentiality of teachers, I didn't feel that that was necessary, but I did think it's important to look at the middle school as in totality. And when you look at the middle school in totality, that shows a significant difference, and that's something to address middle school wide.
Well, I mean, I agree. I think it's something you should address school-wide. I also think it's important that you know who.
Yeah, and I'll be
where
having
the
more
impacts are.
specific conversations with staff,
Absolutely, and that was my
with
point.
more details than what we're showing to the community.
Perfect.
How does this compare to previous year?
We didn't ask this question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We asked questions, similar questions, but not the same question.
What's the time guideline? Is that deadline or is that, what does that?
No, it's 10 minutes per grade. So like a 8th grader should have 90 minutes total homework. It's like 10 minutes for grade 0, right? First grade, 20 minutes, like that. And that's been our published guidelines for years. Across all. Not like this. Correct.
I think this is the topic, we approached a few times tonight, right, the transitions on academic expectations. Do you see as parents, do you report any your child struggling, right, when you go from 2nd to 3rd or 4th to 5th and 6th to 7th, you see a jump 4th to 5th.
So is it 34% of the student, of the individual?
The
students?
respondent said that their child struggled with the transition from 4th to 5th grade. And 35% said their child struggled with the transition from 6th to 7th grade. We're never going to eliminate those.
Oh,
That's not necessarily a goal, because there is a transition and there should be a transition, but just making sure that we're aware of it and we have supports in place to help them grow through that transition. It's just that's the piece that we're, want to focus on, making sure we recognize that it is a struggle and making sure we're helping the kids.
And would you say, just generally speaking, about a third is reasonable? If it was.
I actually expected it to be higher, so actually that number was smaller than what I would have expected to be.
That's a great question, because I was thinking that it would show the positivity of the support. Because if we compare this to a public school where they're going from, into 5th grade, because we are a gifted school, what is a similar response in that arena? Because I don't think we have that many gifted schools to look at as a sample, but public schools we can look at and compare that and, provide some type of comfort.
You need a number. Yeah, we were just looking at the transition. So if you think about the way the school is laid out, right? In kindergarten through 2nd grade, the kids are self-contained in a classroom. In 3rd grade, they go from having a teacher and a teacher assistant following them around all day to 3rd grade, where it's more than one teacher, no teaching assistant, 4 subjects, go all day. That's a big transition for kids. 5th grade, obviously, we understand is the middle school. And then in 7th grade, it's moving into high school level coursework, and the academic expectations increase significantly.
Yeah, the only difference between 5th and 6th was they got a locker.
Yeah, but the same
But it's the
teachers,
same teachers.
same expectation. That last one was, that last one was just about support for students and looking at whether or not the parents felt like the child was receiving an adequate amount of support from their teachers. And so that also kind of ties with the homework, discussion that number, is going down significantly in elementary versus middle school. Obviously, we expect children to have parental support, so those numbers staying consistent makes sense. And then seeing that some of our children are going to outside tutoring centers like I Level Kumon, all those different centers that a lot of our kids go to, that number is, decreasing as they get older.
What does the parent support column represent?
So the question said, my child receives adequate support from their teacher. My child receives support from parents or siblings. And so some people checked both boxes. Some people checked one box or the other, and they didn't pick one or the other, the way that we kind of intended it to be one or the other, but a lot of people picked both.
That might just show that they think the school doing its part and there's.
And the parent is helping at home, right? So that's fine.
Even if it's just with time management. Yeah.
Next area of topic was just in terms of volunteerism, right? And we've asked the parents, like, do you have, how often do you volunteer? And the reasons for not, right, if you're not doing it regularly. Kind of thing, right? So there's percentages, they have occasionally 48% regularly, or 35% do not. The questions like who do not regularly volunteer, I think a lot of predominantly you see the job and work schedule and distance from home, because we are not a neighborhood school. So a lot of parents do commute. And one of the reasons for not volunteering is say, hey, my job schedule or too far from home.
The last time, hard to get volunteers.
Right, but I think, once you don't have to come and drop it. Or even carpool, if you're carpooling, you're not coming in.
We still come
Right.
Once
not as often.
every 3 days or something.
When you can volunteer that morning or something.
Yeah,
for
you
30
still have
minutes or,
to.
yeah.
Like, in thinking in my situation, I always try to, my husband and I alternate, I'll always do it on my day. I'm not gonna come if I don't have to. So that's a really good. What is disappointment?
It's just, those are all like one individual person's.
It's almost like one
Comments.
Comments. Yeah.
One comment.
Focus on the higher, right? I think distance and schedule. I don't know if you can do anything much about it. Like we are not be close to other phone.
We can't be close to everybody.
We can't be close to everybody, and we can't dictate on other schedule. But I think even my take on that is just most of the organizations in the Charlotte area that I know of have or provide credits for employees who volunteer outside their work. So take advantage of it. I think your organization will recognize you for it, and then you can take. I think my previous organization used to do, I think, 4 hours a month, or like. So take advantage of it, and if you give you a good thing if you volunteer, I can guarantee that. Right. Next topic is in terms of communication. So which are the following communications do you read or follow regularly? And teacher might take your help, but I think in general, I think we see in the newsletter combined with the teacher weekly newsletters covers predominantly those two combined. The community is receiving all the information, or they're following those two close enough.
This is another one where you can check multiple boxes. So some family parents checked 2 or 3. So we want to make sure we understood which was still the priority of the 3 options that were provided.
So that's one slide. Just expanding it further on the communication side, there was a question on also saying, can what are the improvements would you consider? Right? I think gladly folks are reading our newsletter, looks like, right? Good percentage on the teachers newsletters that go out. In terms of improvements that the community was recommending, hey, can the teachers to parent on student progress be a little bit more personalized? Be a little bit more proactive, for struggling students before the report cards come out, and more updates on enrichment classes. I keep going, Ms. Piper, if you want to chime in any of the topic. more than welcome to, but the topic was, which is the applications that teachers use across all grades. I think one being a charter school and giving the flexibility to teachers is one advantage. I think the disadvantage is it can change when you change grades. But most of the applications are based on the ability of the students to use, like the Google Class at a higher grade. Google Classroom is used because we rely more dependent teaching on the kids that can use Google Classroom versus parents using a seesaw, and I think seesaw lower grade, right?
Yeah.
You know what's the homework, remind and go tell your kid, work on it, right? So you're giving a little bit more independence to the students as they grow into higher classes. And on the board, more transparency into what activities board is doing and board decisions. We would like to have an in-person town hall and more communication on expansion, those recommendations from the community.
How many people commented in this section? I mean, is it like a third, 20?
We can look up, but I think it was a decent amount. I think about 70% at least of the 150 respondents, and you could do it once per child and not have, right? 151 is multiple.
Yes.
I think.
This was a write-in field. Yes. Would it be beneficial for us to read those?
Yeah, because I'm curious. I mean, I zoned in on the board section of it, and more transparency into board and more transparency into the board decisions. I think it's fascinating if that's what the community is looking to put in, but then it contradicts with all of our experiences when we look on the community involvement, and more than half of them are teachers or someone in
People
support.
were actually listening to our meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, but this is fine. I mean, I think I just took a note because in our town hall, which is the third bullet point, we can talk about that as to, are they listening in on the board meeting? Are they wanting to have an interactive session or something? And then, more communication and expansion. It's come join the board, come join the committee, I think it's a good call
But I would say one thing that in the progress we made in the past, like few years, at least this year and more recently, we started putting the topics the board is going to talk about in the newsletter itself. So 90% say they're reading the newsletter, and we are saying what topics we're going to cover in our board meeting. That's something we have not done in the past. Right? I think it's progress, right? So even since the survey has been given, I think we have made some strides on
Move the board to the top of the newsletter.
the top of the newsletter.
Yeah.
So I think we are going, so it's not,
The week before the board meeting, we're gonna put it up at the top, so it's prominent, so people will see it.
That's a good point, because even though it might not be true, there's a misperception, and so we have to counteract that misperception. I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
That's a good-
And free cookies during the board meeting.
That one of the regular attendees to our board meetings who happens to be employed by the school just texted me and said, watch the board meeting. People. Listen in there. So,
other topic, again, administration on recommendations on communication of staffing changes, more transparency into administrative decisions. On the buses, just again, bus transport, it's a hard one, honestly, because it's easy to ask for sure. There's a lot of variables in it. It is usually daily, but again, I want to put it out there that we here as community, we know what you're asking for. Some of the things could be challenging, some of the things that we'll do, we'll make improvements on, right? And just short video snippets in communication. I think it's probably Adam who's put it in there because he wants to get the video. Or so because he volunteered.
Well, you got voluntold.
He was volunteered, right? All right, next slide. More summarization. I think this is the general comments, right? There were 73 comments. We've asked at the tail end, like it was wide open, right? Any comments? They tie in with majority of the survey percentages we've seen, right? And just asking for more communication between school and parents. There's a concern on teacher retention. and, as they feel and see it. And there are requests for more attention for sports, arts and music, right? And more and the DEI, we talked about, hey, the school community does feel that we are doing more. They do want to see more student, diverse student body. Need for more academic support in middle school. Going back to was commented earlier. Some of the commentary was like, this is the best school in the area. Kids enjoy going to school and they love, their children are being challenged and challenged to excel, being a gifted school itself. So just summary themes among those commentary. I think there will be more work that the Education Excellence Committee and the administration, and as Ms. Piper already alluded to this, she'll take some of the data, further work on some of the topics that need attention.
Is that what you're doing with the data? Is you're taking it back to the Educational Excellence Committee and
If it pertains to right education excellence, we'll take that deep dive, right? If it's communication and then other things, we'll bring it back to other governments and other.
Right.
Pieces.
Even the foundation can take it on its step.
Entertain a motion to take a 10-minute break.
So
So we'll be back at 8:30. Is 10 minutes good to get everybody at what they need to do? At 8:34, we'll be back. Do we need to- I don't know if that's sufficient. Do you need to vote to go to the bathroom?
denied.
any opposition? You didn't ask any opposition?
No.
Nice.
Thank you for your patience. I'll be. Break. We are back and following the agenda, our next item is the Foundation Committee update, and that is AJ.
Hello, everyone. I sent you the report from the foundation. I'm not going to read through all of them, but the punchline out of the annual giving campaign is that we are further behind this month compared to the last month's update when we met for this board meeting. Trends are not holding up to the past year. The ambassadors are calling those that have pledged to fulfill on those pledges because the amount this year is fairly large, 154,000. And you can read through on what the projection would mean in terms of where we would fall against our goal. So that's the key thing here, that we will still be short, almost 10%, 45,000 is what the projection is if 100% of those that are outstanding pledges are fulfilled. So that's a fairly a different reality than what we have seen in the past couple of years. So hoping that everyone comes through on those pledges and we don't have to make any serious decisions based on those. On the transportation program, the item of interest for everyone is what's our shortfall. So it's still at 44,000 short. I don't think that number has changed significantly from the last time. So they're still where it is. I don't think that any more communication has gone out reminding them, so we're kind of sticking to that. And then finally, some good news here. I don't want to be the downer here, but according to GuideStar, there had been some audit results that had to be published onto their website, and based on those, school and our foundation, based on their financially audited results, that has made school and the foundation both platinum status, which matters a lot, for the givers that are looking at other foundations and other charitable organizations that they look at. This is one of the parameters now. This is a new thing that they started, which is have a higher level of transparency and financial documents that they look for. So Ms. Hemming has been able to upload those results in there. And the last bullet point there is the corporate prospectus. So each of the trustees have kind of taken on the task of kind of looking at some of the locally based companies, large organizations, and to build a template of these in our prospect repository, if you want to call that. These could be potential supporters in the future. And then we also look at individually as givers that are our parents that could be potential givers for future networking opportunities here. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the whole child committee.
Awesome. So we've been working on two major things. One of them are teacher retreats. We have a grant, and some of the money we're spending on teacher retreats, those are all booked now. We have 3 different teacher retreats coming in on Mondays in April. So those will be happening soon. And then we're also working with the grant money to add to our playground. And so we have, can we look at the contract to vote for it? So we have in our budget already, we have $60,000 to spend on the playground based on a grant that we've already, and we've already allocated for the playground to receive 60. We met with the company and what they will do is make some modifications to the existing playground to make it a little bit safer, and then add an additional playground structure on site. So it will essentially more than double the playground equipment on site for under our budget, just slightly at a little over 56,000. Because it is over a certain threshold, we do have to vote on it as a board, but that money has already been allocated for within the grant. So. Do we want to vote now? You want to share any of the? I don't believe I sent you any of the documentation of the document or the imagery. Unless, oh, great. There you go. No, it did not change.
Last meeting.
Yeah. This is, yeah, so I didn't send it today. But you can see where it says existing surfacing to be removed. They'll remove some of the squishy flooring material in addition to the spinny thing that is
Calls for.
nauseating, and the monkey bars, which have been problematic from a safety perspective. So they will remove those and some of the flooring material, and then they will add this works. And then you can kind of see the black lines on the top there. That'll be the new playground equipment. So you can see that we are, just looking at it, thinking we're taking off some of that of the existing playground. So it will be bigger than what we have now. The new piece will be bigger and it'll have a nice big shade over it. So all the colors and everything have already been chosen. We will be able to install in after July 4th, but during the summer, as long as we sign up and sure pay our deposit soon. So timing is working out well as well.
And is there a type of warranty on the equipment itself?
I have
Like-
absolutely no idea. I can look into that.
Meaning if the kids break, are they gonna come in? Fix it or something like that?
Yeah, I can check on that. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's very similar setup. It's not the same company, but it's a very similar construction as what we have today. And I don't believe it's built very well. I don't believe we've had any major issues. So we don't anticipate any, but I will check in on that.
How do we find this place? Do we have like a bid or something?
So I reached out to my contacts in the industry and was given 3 names. And I reached out to all of them and no one else responded. And these people have given us, they actually are right across Tyvola. Their office is very close. He's been very transparent. He met us out here. He actually had the great idea because we thought we would have to remove our playground and then completely replace it. And it was actually his idea. He said, why don't we modify it? Because part of the playground works for you. Why don't we modify it and then we can add more? So he's been very helpful and he's also given us a discount. So he's been very helpful to find a creative solution. And I applaud creativity in this. So he kind of won just based on how he was just willing to think outside the box. So this is the playground that's going in there, not the alternate option in the lower right-hand corner. That was a very expensive ad for not much. That pushed us over budget. So we are not doing that alternate option in the lower right-hand corner. And we're also doing a less dramatic shade structure that would actually, I think, work better to provide shade. It will be just a very traditional shade over the structure. So that was a slightly bit more expensive, but we felt that was kind of in keeping with the look of the other playground, so it wouldn't look super out of place and also looked slightly more functional. So
I'm hesitating to even bring this up, right? And because the other idea would be expansion in front of the school. And you mentioned this version now is because we're not moving, so now we don't have to have a removable playground, because the earlier one was to have removable. So clearly this is not removable. Sounds like it's helpful and everything, so it's solid. But I hesitate to even say that. Do we want to talk about have a blueprint at all to consider if we want to use a front for expansion in place?
well, so
I hesitate. I don't even know if I want to propose that. I'm just.
so the amount of money that it would take for us to build out that way is going to be so significant that replacing a $100,000 playground equipment is a rounding error.
That's probably true. I don't disagree with that. That's why I'm hesitating to ask, but on the other hand, too, like, if we are talking to architect in the next step.
So this money has to be spent. We have to spend this money. We did look at the option to make things remote. This is a grant and we have to spend it by January 30th. Okay, or the money goes away. June 30th, thank you. So that's one component. We did look into the ability for things to be movable. And the biggest expense for this playground equipment is, like, the biggest line item is the fluffy stuff on the bottom. And that we can't move no matter what.
That's fine. If it's a grant money we have to spend, that's fine. We'll ignore that.
Well, and this is why we
actually,
waited.
that's stronger.
Yeah.
It's a better option to extend that way. By that time, I agree.
This is a short-term solution because we don't have more green space and we don't have this, but we do have this grant to provide double the amount of playground space. And so we felt that that was yeah.
I missed that picture of that grant money, so yeah, that completely changed that. So we don't need to even consider.
And how long would it take to install this?
Before August 25th.
Okay.
I said that they had a window.
Yeah.
I usually these things, I mean, they're all like pre-manufactured. I don't know the exact length of time, but I would anticipate like a day or two to erect it and then maybe another day or two to lay the flooring.
Mhm.
I mean, they were able to get us in June. So I'm not assuming that this is a long process. Yeah.
How about summer camp? Are we gonna try to work around it if we can? No,
We're gonna take the dates that they're available. 'Cause
okay. Well, I didn't know what their schedule was like.
I mean, it'd be
Mhm.
in July, those playground sets are so hot
Okay.
that the kids don't want to play on them anyway.
Okay.
So
I like the design. I mean, it's nice. I thought this was just like their brochure to like, hey, this is what we can.
No, this is what we actually get.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and there's some musical, like, bongo drums and things. One other thing that we recognize with our current playground is that it does not meet accessibility codes. Because if you've ever played out there, in order to get up there, you have to go like a rock climbing wall, or you have to be on the monkey bars. There are no like just steps. And so in order to be fully compliant with accessibility on playgrounds, 60% of your playground entrances have to be accessible. And so this will have, I think, 2 accessible entrances, which will then push us into accessibility. So we're actually improving our playground accessibility with the addition of this playground.
That's a good point.
Great.
Mhm.
Keeping a list of everything we have to vote on.
Okay, great.
The next committee is actually the finance committee update. And Mike, if you're still with us, do you want to do the initial part there?
I'm here.
Thanks for hanging out.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, really well.
All right, the finance committee has 2 items to bring to the board for vote. The first pertains to our loan. The interest rate on our loan is floating rate, which means it resets periodically. It consists of 2 components: the spread, which is about 2.3% plus or minus, and the benchmark. The benchmark is a piece that changes every month, and that right now is 1-month LIBOR. LIBOR is the London Interbank Offering Rate, and that benchmark is dissolving in June of this year. June 30th will be the last date that LIBOR is available as a benchmark globally. So we have 2 options as a board. The first is to adopt fallback language that's prescribed in the loan, which was conceived, a decade ago, which basically converts our loan from LIBOR plus the spread to prime. The prime rate, just so you guys know, our floating rate today, LIBOR plus the spread, is about 6.8%. Prime is 8%. So it would be a very big jump in interest rate. The second option we have is to amend our existing loan to replace LIBOR with something called SOFR, which is the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. Basically, every instrument across the globe, trillions of dollars, is in the process of transitioning from a LIBOR benchmark to a SOFR benchmark. So we're doing what every other institution that has a loan is doing across the globe. So there's been a lot of these have happened. We're not breaking any ground, and essentially, that would make our future rate, SOFR plus our spread, almost identical to our current rate, LIBOR plus the spread. SOFR and LIBOR will change. They move differently, so going forward, they may separate, but at least at the starting point, as of June 30th, our interest rate would be just about the same as it has been in terms of how it's composed. I'll pause there. Any questions on that piece?
Mike, changing the language in the contract, is that something that we are going to suggest to the bank, or is the bank coming with this request to change from LIBOR to SOFR?
The bank has already suggested we change. They've already drafted an amendment. I've already reviewed that amendment. I have a few business points, business comments on it. And we've already engaged our pro bono counsel to review that amendment. So we're definitely down the path on that. And again, this is like, we're not carving any new ground here. This is Truist has done, hundreds of, probably thousands of these already. So in terms of cost, there is a cost to amend the loan. We have to pay counsel, our bank's counsel, right? They don't do it for free. So we'll have to pay for their counsel. I estimate that cost will be $2,500 to $3,000. There might also be a cost for the bond counsel to review. I don't know that yet. I don't think it would be as material because they're not going to prep anything. So figure plus or minus $3,000. It saves us 1.2% in interest rate. So our recommendation is from the finance committee would be to proceed with the amendment to transition to SOFR.
Mike, I don't quite understand. So I understand that transferring to SOFR is definitely the preferred because the prime rate is very forbidding. But on the other hand, if the bank is forcing, if LIBOR is going away, I think it was since last year, why are they making us paying to amend the contract? Like they are initiating. I don't quite understand how that works.
Well, we don't have to do anything, and they don't have to do anything. If nothing happens, our loan converts to prime. They would be very happy with that because then they'd be getting 1.2% more interest. So,
What is
Yeah.
prime?
For reference, the 1.2% on our approximately 2 million is $24,000 a year if we do nothing. Increase
Per year.
per year.
and look, I'm going through this professionally with all of my clients. The convention is the client pays, right? The bank, this is stuff that's unforeseen when you make a loan, and that's not a cost that banks bear, right? It's a client cost. It's widely accepted as a client cost.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that one? The second thing that needs to come to board vote is basically an extension of the Acadia accounting contract. We used, I don't know how long we've used Acadia. Ari might be able to answer that. Adam certainly would be able to, but I think we've been happy with them as a company. Their cost is not changing. It's $85 per student. It's roughly $36,000 a year is what we pay to the accounting service. Technically, we have a 3-year contract, and it auto renews April 1st. So this is an opportunity for us to terminate if we wanted to. The finance committee's recommendation is to continue with Acadia.
Clarify, can I clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Actually we only signed a 2-year contract with an option to extend for the 3rd year. So this is the option to extend for the 3rd year. And we did that because at the time we were pretty confident expansion was going to happen. And because it's an ADM based fee structure, we wanted to renegotiate. And so they were able to give us a fee structure for our expanded numbers that wouldn't be directly related to a per ADM cost. So we said, look, we'll sign for 2 years. You could put the extension. They wanted us to sign for 3, extension for the 3rd year into the contract. So this is an automatic renewal for a 3rd year on that original contract.
Like Adam had mentioned, I think when we were agreeing to the contract for is it the 3rd-party auditor? That it's a good idea to change every once in a while. Does that logic apply here as well?
I think there'd be really significant disruption if we change. And again, I understand the auditor changing, why you'd want to change an auditor. I feel less strongly that you'd want to change your accounting service. I don't know. Eric, do you have any idea how long we've used them?
We have used them for at least since 2016. I'm not sure prior to then, but it is, they went through some challenges back in 16, 17, and we considered and we looked at some other services at that time and decided to stay with Acadia with some, kind of renewed interest in some promises that they made to us at that time. And they've really, become incredibly good at what they do. And we have no concerns and no, desire to go with any other company.
And I didn't think we had any concerns. I just didn't know if there was some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it,
Convention. Yeah, like a convention. It's a totally fair question. I don't know. I probably won't be able to get you an answer prior to April 1st when we need to vote. But how about if you're comfortable, I'd be happy to look into that. And next year when we need to renegotiate, if that's something, if we need to consider that, then we can bake it into our conversation, and that'll give us more time to get other quotes and do some other reconnaissance as well. But it's a fair question.
I think that makes sense. And I'm confident just in your thinking that you could see where the auditor would make sense changing, but not so much the accounting firm. But yeah, I mean, I think if you bring it up next year, that gives us a little bit more time to look into it. So, yep, completely fair. Thank you.
I think, and this may be just something I'm imagining, but they helped us, Acadia also helped us during the filing of when we were shut down in COVID. They also did a lot of paperwork for us to file for the loan, the PPP program, and then for the follow-up. So I think it certainly showed some goodwill.
Yeah. My concern is not with the quality of the work. My concern is with it's checks and balances.
Right.
Like, it's a good idea to change auditors because you need some new eyes on things.
Yes.
Because that's how problems happen. You have the same people. People don't go on vacation. That's a problem. You need someone else to look at it. And I just don't know enough about accounting, quite frankly, to if changing accounting firms is under that get someone else's eyes on it concept. But since we have a third-party auditor, I would think that probably not, because that's the different set of eyes that you have on it. But I just don't know.
And plus, I think the other side that kind of, for me, looking into it is, we have board members that are taking a pretty active role in kind of that second set of eyes looking at, not at the detailed one, we also have a finance manager now that is kind of tallying up that work on that side too. So
Sure.
there are other things that are sitting on top of that
Mhm.
also.
Yeah.
But I mean, I also agree that I think it's good to kind of evaluate them, but if they are doing a good job, then I think we should
Mhm.
consider not disrupting them.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not about the quality of the work. It's like I said, more of a principle or convention for best practices, I should say. I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions on that item? Catherine, I didn't know if it's a little bit of a shame that Adam and I are both on PTO today. I didn't know if you wanted to facilitate this next part of the conversation or if you'd like me to. I'm happy to, you know, let me back up. I know there's been some of a little bit of a theme about the foundation numbers coming a little bit short and the transportation numbers coming a little bit short. And, you know, we're having to think through strategic priorities. And I don't think Adam and I want to give the impression that there's, you know, we're in any sort of financial peril. That's not the theme we want the rest of the board to hear, right? We just want to make sure that for Ari and Sabrina and others who are making decisions, that they know, you know, what items need to be prioritized, and so that we can, you know, put something in front of the board for, you know, for a vote or for discussion that reflects the, you know, the priorities of the board. So, Catherine, do you have an idea on how you want the next part of this conversation to go?
I have an idea. We'll see how it goes. I prepared a couple slides just to kind of keep us directed. We're not going to go 45 minutes on the deck. A lot of that was meant for the discussion around the increase in ADM, which we did earlier because we had a pretty big audience. So this is more of a just kind of an update and what we're going to assign to committees to go do some work and come back and help us figure out the priorities. So the two things that we're going to cover high level are the expansion direction and then the bus transportation program. And figuring out who's going to go come up with recommendations of what those strategic priorities are. And this is really pertinent right now because it is budget planning season. A lot of us got together back on March 14th to try to come up with some direction so that when Ari and Sabrina go mock up that first proposed budget for next year, they have some idea of where to go. Committee meetings this month, extra important to try to make some decisions and I think kind of flow through some of that information back to them as they're working on it during April. We'll see the first version of the budget draft. There'll be a draft at that point at the next board meeting. We'll be able to give some feedback, ask some questions, and then that will give them May to get it solidified, and we won't have the vote until May, our May meeting. And then at that point, it's set for next year. So it's kind of we're starting the discussion, gonna kind of ask a bunch of questions today, gonna go off the committees, figure it out, and then reiterate a few times until we get to the end of May. So the first one is, go on. First one is expansion. And for expansion, I wanted us, really wanted us to level set with the community that while it's been very quiet externally for the last 5 years, there has been a lot of work happening behind the scenes, trying to make it happen. I would say that there have been thousands of hours led by Ari and then the various board members over the past couple of years, trying to coordinate it. And it really was about to happen. So at this point, we are back kind of at the beginning again. It's been 5 years since the board voted to say this is an important strategy for us. I think everybody still feels that way, but I think it's an important time for the expansion committee to go back and kind of figure out what options we have. I think through the DEI committee and through a lot of other committee work, I feel pretty strongly in saying we're committed to diversifying the school and making it more accessible to anyone who can get here and helping them to come here and feel comfortable. So is that possible to do that in place? Can we expand here with what we've got? Or do we need to go re-engage with brokers, perhaps an owner's rep to go find the land to go do it? There's pluses and minuses with both of those. We are limited in our geography here. What can we do creatively? I think it would be accepting that we are more of an urban school. We're not going to have the big fields. So, what things like the playground, what other creative ways can we use our property to just use? We do have a piece of property that's becoming more and more integrated in a really lively community. So, is this where we want to be? Or can we go find land? And if we're going to go find land, can we still afford it? Within our 5-mile radius, and get that much more land to make it worth it, the risk of jumping spots. I think what we're asking the board today is just a 10-minute discussion on really talking to the expansion committee of what each of us feels should be the priority of like what to go. I'd really like to see you investigate. But there has been, as Wei said, a meeting with the architect that helped with the renewal of our building 12 years ago of what's possible. So that's been started a little bit. Last year, Wei led a bunch of research on owners reps and what it would look like to go build a new building. So some of the work's been done, but if we could just take a couple of minutes, not getting in the weeds, but just to express some opinions of what direction people feel is important. And even if it's, I feel really strongly that we continue to expand, or it's been too much, let's just stop. Whatever it is. I'm going to open the floor. I don't know if you want to start with Ari or anyone.
So I'll share a little bit more color. So I was hoping to get a little bit more data or things to consider for people to actually go through this, right? But on the other hand, most of these things are really up in the air. What do we have? What's availability without engaging a new owner's rep, or maybe we don't have to have an owner's rep, but like a broker, because we have been having second thoughts on do we want to continue a relationship with our current broker and all those things. So we haven't really have a big picture of what are availabilities, right? When we add the relationship with the possibility we were talking about for the last several years, we went back to our previous broker and asking if there's any school that's possible in the near radius of our school to be able to convert to another school, or a church which doesn't need much of the permit or any other things to make that happening. That we haven't really got any viable solution. So if we wanted to engage in a broader search, that's really a back to the beginning, wanted to make sure everybody has a commitment. You don't need to do the work, but the board has a commitment. We want to expand in the next 3 years or something like that, right? 2 or 3 or 4 years. We'll do it, and it's similar when we talk to the architect. It's basically the same thing. What do we want to do? The initial idea we went with didn't work because we were thinking about adding a second floor, and the second floor means one side of the building, or at least 5 classes will have to be done for a semester. That's not going to work, right? So we have to, if we are doing expansion in place, we have to build something to move those kids so that we can add a second floor for that semester. So it has to be phased of adding a structure. Maybe that structure can be a gym or whatever, or it's just a one line of new classroom. But let's say we add a gym and then separate that temporarily for those 5 classrooms to move in, or something else, or cafeteria move in, whatever it is, right? We have to shuffle those kids to be able to house those kids for the time that we build the second floor of current building. But anyways, the question the architecture gave us was, what's your budget, right? So it's really how much are we committed, how much it's really dollar much are we committed to this. And what's the aspiration from our current board member on this? And so I would actually think that the first question would be, what do we want, right?
At a very high level. I think that, I speak for myself, I think expansion is great and we should still try to expand. But I also think that we can't be in a standstill with our current school and our current students like we have been. We put a lot of things on hold because we're gonna expand, we're going to expand, but you know, it didn't happen for various reasons, you know, not for lack of hard work, that's for sure. But I think there needs to be a balance between taking care of our school here and our students that we have now and expanding. And obviously that's much easier said than done. I don't even really know what that means, but again, at a very high level. There's a lot of resources you have to dedicate to expanding. I mean, I don't know if you have the appetite to start this all over again, but again, I think from a very high level, yes, we should expand, but we need to, you know, continue our lives here at the same time. Those are my thoughts.
The playground, you know, a very small example.
Exactly, right.
Like, let's not hold on to that money any longer. We need to spend it so that
That's right.
kids now can enjoy
Yeah,
it.
great, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
And that's looking at the property conditions, you know,
Yeah.
like that's another example of like,
Mhm.
okay, what do we need to fix in our
Yes,
current building to make this
absolutely.
better?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Let's take care of our school that we have here and our students that we have here. Not saying that we haven't, but we have put things on hold. Let's take care of what we have here and, you know, and still explore expansion. I mean, I think it'd be great if we can, you know, serve all those kids that are on the waiting list and accommodate everybody. That'd be fantastic. But again, let's take care of what we have here right now and our students.
Yeah, similar sentiments as well, right? So the last 5 years, the previous board and the current board, like we are still committed to expand. Now we have made some promise. I think the access grant is one part. We changed our mission statement or updated our mission statement for a reason, right? So we are a gifted school in Charlotte. We are one of the unique schools in Charlotte area. And looking at the waiting list and number of applications we see grow year after year after year, it shows that there's a need for a school like us to give and support more number of students as best as we can. The experience in the last 3-4 years has shown even the marketplace is changing, right? I think it's getting harder and harder to find a lot or a building or anything. I think it's harder. And we put hold on a lot of money that we could have spent on this building to make changes because we were very close to finding another place. I think it's time to pivot, in my opinion, to say, hey, why don't we spend the money on our building, see what we can do and what we can expand. We can expand, and I think to Catherine's point, like, hey, we have to compromise in certain things, right? Okay, yes, part of it was we want a large green space. Probably we can't get the compromises, we're going to get more students who are like-minded, like gifted, or one of the other need was, can we get our community to have a bigger gifted peers, right? So we're going to solve that problem, but not solve the other. It's a compromise. I think we're going to spend the money. I think that's my take. Let's see what we can do in this building.
I think I'm on the same boat, just because I mean, we've looked around and it's like, even the great plan that we had that we were working for, there were still concessions. And so we were spending a lot of money and still not checking off every single box. And so can we, you know, it's like a love it or list it on HGTV, right? You know, let's see what we can do here. We've already got the land. We bought it at a steal. We've got a lot of equity. And can we maybe grow a little slower or not as much? You know, what was our plan at one point was, yeah, so maybe that's not what we do, but we do more, so we have more peers. But also, you know, when I was looking at the school 6 or 7 years ago for our son, like, how many schools in New York City exist and don't have green space? And those kids are just fine, you know, and I think kind of saying, yeah, we're an urban school and we're not going to have fields and fields and fields. But it's also in the parent survey, sports was a question. Well, you don't really like, I appreciate the sports offerings that we do have. You don't come to Metrolina to be like a star soccer player, you know? Or there's also rec leagues and stuff. There's other opportunities for that. So I don't see that as big of a, like, I don't think we should move for green space. Because if we're moving for green space, we're gonna go way outside of our radius and we are going to alienate a host of people that we're trying to be centrally located at this point. So, yeah, I want to age in place.
If you do find something like around, if it's something hits, we'll probably look at it, but not focus that, focus can shift to say, okay, let's spend the money.
Because there's a lot of time invested in like that due diligence every time we look at a new building. How many X number of people go out there? Okay, can we get files to see, document files to see what could be done with the space? What would the contract costs be to build out that space? We've done that over and over, and it's just when you have an infinite number of possibilities, that's just an infinite amount of time. And if we can just focus on we already have it. We don't have to negotiate this land, it's ours.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Catherine, was that to me?
About to head to the next slide. Didn't know if you wanted to pipe in anything on expansion.
I mean, the only thing that I would say is that the last decade, Charlotte's grown like crazy and property values have gone up like crazy. The next 3 or 4 years, that might change, right? There's, I've been kind of saying this for a little while. There's material stress in the commercial real estate market that's percolating, right? So I think I agree with the sentiment that was shared. And I think if we just hang around the hoop on a couple, there might be something that shakes loose in terms of a building that's sold under distress, right? That could fit our needs. So, we might be shifting into a buyer's market that we haven't had the pleasure of enjoying.
You say the short-term ask of the expansion committee is to go figure out what is possible here. Like focus your efforts on that for the short term. Come back. What's the plan?
I would remind also that our AGC campaign is behind, right? So part of the sentiment of expansion, where that is a self-funded, possibility. This is a very material impact on how the gap that we don't get support from the state is supported by the small community here. So yes, I think we looked at the possibility, the modeling was there to kind of expand and be able to support it, but I think we did not find the right opportunity. But in the meantime, I think as others have said, we have not been able to maintain the school in the standards that we have come to expect. So I think it's okay to look inwards and wait for the right opportunity, whether it's 3 or 4 years or 5 years from now. But we need to be clear about that that sentiment carries into the next board, because every year as this kind of changes, we don't want to kind of have a changing of the wind every couple of years where it comes in with a whole new slew of directives that throws off the multi-year planning that it requires.
We'll go back to the board, which we will be doing it on. I think the next step would probably be, let's say, if we want to add, instead of all 9 buckets, which is probably not going to happen, maybe add 6 from 3rd to 8th. If that's, well, I'm just throwing out there, right? Anything. And let's say we are talking about, okay, we want to add 5 classes, and the 5 classes means this much of a building, and then ask finance if it's possible, this is amount of money, what budget we can do with 5 classrooms, right? Kind of thing, and then go back to architecture. And I actually think that we might even need to re-engage an owner's rep just to think about what do we do here, because we actually had some good ideas last time that's coming from them as well. What we can do with constructions on this, but we can definitely go back and have those discussions before we actually go ahead engaging with anybody. And of course, all the budget and everything needs to be discussed. So thanks for everybody's feedback.
When we met with the architects, what they said to us was, tell us what you want, and we will figure out how to make it happen and how much that would cost you. And so I would love to see the expansion committee come back to the board with a recommendation of what do we want what do we want to happen, so that we can see if then we can afford to make that happen.
It seems to me like I would know where to start, like, can the architect tell us what's possible first?
Well, but he doesn't know what do we want? Do we want to add 5 classrooms? Do we want to add 5 classrooms and make a full-size gym? Do we want to add 3 classrooms only? Do we want to convert? One of their ideas was converting this existing space to classrooms. One of their ideas was to knock that back wall out and make an outdoor seating area. Like, they had all of these ideas, but they were like, until you tell us what you're trying to achieve
Gotcha.
with this expansion,
Okay, so
we
it's not
can't
like
come to you and tell you how much it's gonna cost and
high
what
level.
to do it. I said, what do
Okay.
you want? You want 3 classrooms? Do you want 5 classrooms? Do you want a gym? What do you want?
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, well, we want to add a classroom there. We want to, I'm like, I have no idea.
Not how,
No.
what do you want? They'll come after the how.
Yeah, okay,
Think about like if you were doing your own house,
right, right.
you know, I can design you whatever house you want, but you need to tell me how many bedrooms you want.
Gotcha. Okay, understood. That,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
But are we giving him any ceiling of,
Well, they said, come to us, what you want, what is your budget, and we'll tell you how we can make it happen.
Okay, that's good.
And they can also too, I mean, like, you know, if we say, okay, this is our end goal.
Mhm.
And they can pull together a few different scenarios. And they can also give like high level pricing on all of those scenarios. Like, these 3 options will achieve your goals.
Mhm.
Some maybe check off 100%, some maybe check off 75, and each of those have a value to it. And so then we can kind of do a cost benefit analysis from the school side.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's very, very typical. That's what I do every day.
Mhm.
But we have to tell them what we want first, and maybe a good, better, best too. Like, okay, this is our ideal, but this is our minimum. And then they'll be able to work with it.
And timelines too, right? I mean, you're not just saying build it, but we need it by a certain time. with a
Well, we're
certain-
not really gonna have much of control over that.
Mhm.
I mean, the timeline is gonna be the timeline, and it's how our expansion works in that timeline versus let their timeline work for our expansion.
And they're very aware, because I mean, they design schools, so they understand our timeline, and some of the ideas that they had come up with were phased approaches to, like, we start here, and then you shift people here, and then we work on that, and then so that you shift people around as the phases go through.
Okay.
And they were very creative about, yeah, like, what can we do during the summer? What are some short-term things that we could do? You know, what are things that would take a longer time frame? You know, like, if we do add something in a, you know, like add a wing to the building, it's a pain in the butt, but you can do that during school. Adding a second level to a classroom, obviously, if that can't happen during the summer, then there's some major disruption.
Yeah.
So maybe that then has to be like a phase 2, once we have a place to shift children. And so it may look like I mean, just like when you're going through a renovation on your home, right? There's a few months in there, it would be longer for us. It's kind of a pain in the butt,
Mhm.
but once you move into the new space, you kind of forget all of that.
Right.
As for women, I equate it to labor, because you're not looking forward to it, and then it's a pain in the butt, but as soon as that baby falls asleep through the night, you're like, let's do it again. So that would be, it would be tough, but the end goal is what we actually draw.
Makes sense. So the last topic is the bus transportation program. And I think this is more just of a heads up, because we've talked about it in foundation and we've brought it up again in other finance settings. It is, given the situation that we're no longer able to charge fees and we're falling short on the revenue and on the donations towards the program fund, it's a real decision for us to how we're going to handle the future. It's a budget line item that we did not plan for, and it's a real expense. So it's our duty to help provide direction on what our priority is. Are we committed to providing transportation? Are we committed to providing a kind of a hybrid, lesser version, or is it time to abandon it? I think Ms. Piper is going to help the three ideas here very high. Well, we know that it currently costs 130 in the format, the service that we're providing today. Early estimates is there could be a reduced version for around 60, or discontinuing it, which goes against kind of what we've committed to doing. So at this point, we're looking for this is really an operational thing and ties into finance and budget of whether or not we can do it.
And that operational thing, I mean, the financial aspect is one thing, but I think on the operational thing, it impacts other things that could be done. So, I mean, you could hire a coordinator, but that's again, a financial thing, because it takes away some of the day-to-day issues that, you have been dealing with. But again, that's going to be a net gain of extra funding that would be needed. I mean, this is bare minimum to nothing are the other options.
And if we keep the full service as is and don't get the donations to cover it, what gets cut
Yes.
from our budget in order to cover it? And do we cut something from the overall budget for all students when only what percentage of kids are on the bus?
It's about 150 of our kids.
Okay, so not 50%. Yeah, so do we, do you?
I think the ask here is more just to, as we go through the budget process, transparency that we're going to be looking at those items as kind of a sensitivity analysis of what can be done.
What does reduced service look like? It's afternoon only, or 2 lines versus 3 lines?
We'll have specific plans for you when we come with a budget of like what it looks like.
So this is for next school year, we have to decide.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, that involves specific personnel, so I can't talk about that right now.
Also, this is a topic that we'll have in our April 19th town hall meeting. So there might be some questions, but as a board, we should just be careful that cannot specifically talk about specific things, but in general, we can talk about the program.
First, like, it's our obligation to share with communities. This is a big budget deficit, and either the bus has to go, or in some certain percentage or all, or some other services our kids are getting is going to go, right? So we just need to.
Right, and we'll show you when we have a budget, we can show you what are those, options.
It's just unfortunate.
More to come. Work is happening on those questions. That brings us to our second opportunity for community comment. Let's see if we have the same rules apply. Public is welcome to speak, limit to 3 minutes. Topics should not cover private, confidential, or personal information. The board will not respond or enter into dialogue on topics discussed. This time, you may indicate your desire to participate in community comments by raising your hand. Give me 1 moment to open up the box. Thank you for your commitment to staying on and listening to us for this long. We appreciate it. Okay, I don't see any hands and I don't see anything in chat, so we will proceed. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel matters.
So move.
Any, all those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, we will go into closed and return probably fairly shortly. I will send you a closed session link in just a second.
Thank you.
It is 10:30 and we are back from closed session. Ready to vote on the items from today's meeting.
I have a list of items for us to vote on. I move to, is that right? Make a motion to approve the 6-month membership in the North Carolina Association for Public Charter Schools.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like that?
Do we need them for a forum?
We don't, but I need to not make it, yeah.
I have tried, so we extended it now. It probably expired.
Hey guys, sorry.
No worries.
We moved and seconded a motion to join the North Carolina Association for Public Charter Schools. Are you a nay or a yay or a nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Now it's gonna be unanimous. All right. I move to approve a contract for grant-funded enhanced playground equipment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed.
I move to approve Board on Track contract for the 2023 to 2024 school year.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes.
I move to amend the language in our current bond to shift the interest rate index from the expiring LIBOR rate to SOFR.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
It was a fabulous summary.
I move to approve the Acadia contract for accounting services to renew for 1 year on April 1st.
All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes.
And the last, I move to approve option 2A to increase ADM by 8 students to the rising 5th grade, so a total of 60 students.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. One more.
Oh, I move to adjourn the meeting.
All those-
Aye.
Aye. Good night, guys.
Thank you all.
It's,
Oh.
Wasn't